Pass at Queen Mary is run by students and scaffolded by staff. It's a course-based mentoring scheme where more experienced undergraduate mentors help first years settle into higher education, a transition that can be perplexing as well as exciting. On this film, you'll hear from many of the PASS mentors and from 3 of the academics who head up the PASS scheme in their departments or schools.
I felt that the first years coming to university sometimes found it difficult to realise that the style of teaching was very different from what they'd experienced at school, and that had a large expectation to do self-driven, self-motivated learning on their own. And I think they found that quite hard. And we wanted to try and instill the realisation that they could do it and to try and give them some of the skills to enable them to do that. And we felt that the second and third years would help with that, maybe in a more accessible manner than if they just came to me, basically, and asked me. And they might find me a bit scary. The first years, I don't know.
It's really good for the first years in the sense that they come, most of them come fresh out of A-levels and they don't know what to expect. Yeah. So it's always good to see, to have someone, a friendly face, who can show them it's not as bad as you think it is.
Exactly, yeah. Just someone they can talk to, just... you know, that's got a bit of experience.
Yeah, and it's not just sort of the subject matter that we talk about as well. You know, we talk about pretty much everything. Sort of where's a great place to eat, what are the lecturers like, where can I get cheap books, all of that stuff. So it's a confluence of both teaching, of helping them to learn stuff, as well as just settling into university life as well.
I think the main thing is in managing the transition from school to university. So this is a really big issue. I think anyone involved in teaching in higher education knows about this, particularly teaching first years. University is a really, really different experience in all sorts of ways. You're looking at the subject in a much more sophisticated way. We expect much more independent approach to learning. And you know, it's no surprise that students have to learn this, and that takes time. And one great way of supporting this transition is through things like PASS, the first year students interacting with, talking to, getting to know students who've been through all this very recently is really helpful.
You know, Mohammed, I remember when I was in my first year and I didn't know any third or second years, and there was no place to be able to go to meet people from other years. And I always wanted to, you know, get to know people, just to ask them questions, make more friends, but there's just nowhere to do it really. So, you know, being a PASS mentor, it's really nice to be able to be with the first years, seeing them speaking to other third years is like a great place just to make friends.
I mean, I totally agree, because personally in my first year it was really difficult to approach the second and third years, but you know, this sort of platform has made it more made us more approachable. I mean, personally, I actually was just in the student union like a couple of days ago, and John, you know, one of our mentors, just approached us, and he, you know, was saying, "How you doing, Mohammed? How's everything? How's it hanging?" I mean, it's really refreshing to see that first and second and third years are actually be able to integrate and socialize.
It's true. Like, I was speaking to one of the first year girls, Mavish, and I realised we've got so much in common, and we were just talking about movies, and I realised that we actually like a lot of the same movies. So it was nice to be able to help her with her work, you know, academic things, but then to move on and just be talking about movies and things like that.
Exactly, yeah.
I think there's general benefits socially. I think it's good for building some kind of community of students, and the second years talk to the first years more. They get to feel they really are part of some academic community, which after all is what university is about.
He was too good to get in Queen Mary.
PASS mentoring sessions are held in departments once or twice a week. They are friendly and informal, student to student.
Interacting with their peer group can give them a bigger picture of what's expected of them in later years, and the students themselves see it from a unique point of view because they're actually going through the course. So they can get that angle on it as well, and I think that all helps because it is a huge adjustment, and there wasn't anything in place previously.
No, I think that's a very good point. The fact that you know, I might tell them that X is really important, but if they hear it from a second or third year, then no, they really know. It's not that old fuddy-duddy who's just saying, "Oh, in my day." You know, they actually really do have someone who's current telling them it's much more relevant and has a much greater impact. I think that's a very good point.
I think that the advantage that we have as student mentors is that, first of all, we are of a closer age gap, but also, more importantly, sort of experience gap. And we can sort of more sympathize with students in their first year. And I think being rather not sympathetic, more empathize. And that way we can, if you like, more effectively help guide them to sort of their needs. And I think that's something that, unfortunately, lecturers and professors and that sort of stuff don't have that rapport with the students to be able to make them, for example, feel comfortable in the course, make them feel confident in their academic abilities, which is really what PAS is about. And I think that's the advantage that we have.
Yeah, I think I got it. Could you have a look at it?
Oh yeah, sure. Well, this equation is correct.
I listen to someone. If I listen to like a supervisor or a professor, they're too old, so I feel like that, it was such a long time ago for them that they didn't know what they're talking about. Whereas if they're our peers and like people who have been through our courses and stuff, then they'll know firsthand what it's all about. And I feel like I passed on my wisdom. I don't have much, but this is the kind of wisdom that I feel like I can pass on to help them.
Some things that you actually find in your first year, some methods of doing something, some ideas that you have in your mind that you can actually pass to them.
Definitely.
At Queen Mary, the mentors are volunteers. They get a lot of satisfaction and some useful skills. Talking to first years also reminds them of what they actually know themselves.
It's also good in terms of the subject matter. In I think a lot of subjects, and maths is no exception, students regard their degree programme as very modular. Once they've learnt one course, they revise it for the exam, hopefully, and then they forget it. Of course, no discipline is really like that. And by mentoring the first year students, if that keeps some of those first year modules in their minds, makes the second year students realise, oh yes, what I'm doing in the second year really does build on and extend that, that's really good.
So Nuzza, how's the PAS sessions going?
Oh, it's been going really well. It's very interesting being a PAS mentor and seeing them, the mentees, interacting with each other and becoming friends. Because it just reminds me that 2 years ago I made my own friends that way. When I went to the session, I met new people and they just became my friends. And also it reminds me of the material that I've learned before.
It's true. I was in a session the other day and we were talking about statistics with some of the first years, and I had completely forgotten that I ever learnt it. But hearing them talking about it just reminded me of everything. It was so helpful because, exams are coming and I needed to remember that.
Yeah, I agree. It's a two-way thing. It's not just us helping them, but they help us remember what we might have forgotten. And we make new friends as well. They become our friends, don't they?
It's true.
When they see us around campus, they're all friendly.
It's true. It's nice catching up with them.
Yeah, it is.
I think the method of explaining information clearly and as simply as possible is somewhat of an art. And when it comes to applying that in your own work, it has benefited me a lot in terms of doing my own work, my own projects and things like that, because I'll try the same methods that I try in first year, I'll just apply it to myself. And from there I find that I understand work a lot better by applying past mentoring sessions to myself as well.
Yeah, especially sort of when you're writing stuff on the board. You've got all the eyes watching you.
Oh yeah.
That's very useful for presentation skills and things,
Public speaking is definitely one of those skills that have been developed in the past mentoring session.
So then maybe you could go home, have a go at it.
The key emphasis in past training is that the mentor doesn't supply answers, but scaffolds, encourages and draws out the mentee's own ideas and solutions.
I've actually done that question. You just have to use...
It was a really good experience the first time to see how you can teach in a different way. I thought I'd have to know all the answers when past really isn't about that. You more or less probe them into thinking of the answers for themselves.
So, if you understand this concept here, you can apply it to this concept, It's not really that hard.
So you mean that this is completely dependent on the other one?
Exactly.
Right, so, and then you combine both of them together, and then...
Learning mentoring skills helps if you go on to teach or tutor, like this doctoral student who is a former past mentor and organiser.
One of the skills in mentoring that I use into my tutoring are not giving the students the answer. And how I do that is I try to get them to give them keywords and ideas to come to an answer. And instead of giving them, that kind of gets them to the track of how to answer questions instead of telling them the answer.
The first year can be quite challenging. I remember
The role of a PASS organiser is very crucial. They bring in a connection between the PASS mentors, the coordinators and the senior tutors. And they also have a role of making sure that the timetables are correct. I think one of the things I like best about PASS is that the students who come in as mentors are doing this voluntarily, and also the organisers who come in are so passionate about their work.
Well, we've been incredibly lucky in maths to have had a succession of really fantastic student organisers. They've been enthusiastic and well organised and competent, and that's made, I think that's absolutely essential. That makes it possible. If it's something that the department is imposing on the students and we're having to make all the running, I think it really can't work.
One of the benefits of having PASS scheme in a department, and the benefits for that department, is that they are not actually having to worry about how PASS is run because it's done by the widening participation. Even though it's run by the widening participation as a separate entity, there's much space for the department to kind of cater and to mould PASS into their own department.
Numbers at sessions vary, giving the mentors experience of large group and one-to-one work.
If it's a more thematic PASS session where the academic year is coming to an end and more students are coming in for a specific problem, you'd have more of a group discussion, more of a group-oriented PASS session, which is much more easier to run because you're focusing on one particular problem, and the mentors are, much easier for them to handle the group. It's much nicer to have a group that is much big. Though if there are only one or two, it's still fine. I mean, it still works out. Or you can engage with them in a one-to-one session instead. The whole idea of PASS is that anyone can come in whenever they want to come in. It's not a tutorial, it's not a lecture, so we're not going to send them out. So when they do come in, we try to get them into a particular group that is already set up there. If not, we try to create another group, depending on their problem.
Hi, is this the PASS session?
Oh yes, it is. Welcome, come in. We're just starting up with just a little introduction. What's your name?
Hi, I'm Anthony.
Hi, Anthony. It's okay that you just introduce yourself quickly to the group.
Yeah, sure. Hi guys, I'm Anthony and I'm a first year student.
Okay. Could we just carry on?
PASS mentors are rooted in their own departments, but also take part in mentoring events and conferences across the college and with other universities running similar schemes. These pictures are from a mentoring forum with UCL, hosted by PASS at Queen Mary. At the end of the year, mentors come together for a certificate ceremony where they can be thanked for all their hard work.
I think one of the skills that I particularly admire about mentors is how they engage with students, how they do less of the talking and they let the mentees do more of the talking, and how they allow them to come to an answer by just giving them keywords and cues to bring them to that answer, and then finally saying to them, well, you've got the answer, and they had said nothing, the mentor themselves, and I think that's one of the skills I really admire about mentors.
Combining them, you can find out the conclusion.
One of the most satisfying moments would be where a mentee themselves comes to an answer or figures out the answer, and just watching that moment